I now call upon Senator Osotsi to contribute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to also make my contribution on this very important bill, the Election Amendments Bill 2024, that is a product of the NADICO process. And I'm happy that this House has already dispensed with the Political Parties Act that is now supposed to go to Committee of the whole House. And now we are handling the Election Amendments Bill. Mr. Speaker, I want to support the provisions in this bill, although a few others I have reservations. And let me start by looking at clause 3, which talks about the people who register as voters during the by-election process should ideally not be eligible to contest election in that electoral area. You remember we had the long-drawn case of Keith Kilonzo, which many people are questioning why she was not able to contest. But I think it's important that during that period, people who are keen to be candidates should be stopped. Because why at the last minute, Mr. Speaker? So I think that's a very progressive amendment, and I support it. Mr. Speaker, I also want to support Honorable Cherege's statement that election in this country is very expensive. We conduct a very, very expensive election process. And I think the issue of cost of conducting an election in this country must be looked at so that we don't make election very expensive and therefore make other very important national programs derail because of election. Mr. Speaker, let me also comment on what is happening now, Mr. Speaker, where we don't have IBC. It is a pity that this country does not have an IBC, Mr. Speaker. This is a very risky IBC commission. What we have is an IBC secretariat. We don't have an IBC commission. It is important that the courts also have to take judicial notice of what is happening in the country. Because without an IBC, Mr. Speaker, we run the risk, major risk, constitutional risk in this country. I am surprised that even a mere decision of coming up with a selection committee, people will serve maybe for 3 months. It has dragged in court, and even after the court made a decision on that, some other people rushed to court. Why is the courts entertaining all this? They need to take judicial notice of what is happening to the country. They need to take judicial notice of the fact that unavailability of IBC is a serious, serious problem, a serious risk that can lead to a constitutional crisis. So I think it's important for us to have an IBC so that the by-election, the people of Banisa, the people of several electoral areas who do not have representative, they can have representative in those areas, Mr. Speaker. Some are even not able to get services because they don't have either an MCA or a member of parliament. Going back to the bill, Mr. Speaker, on clause number 18, which is seeking to amend section 33 of the Act, the issue of gazettement of names of political party candidates and independent candidates to contest in an election. I think this is important so that these candidates are properly gazetted, and even the independent candidates are properly gazetted before an election. Also, Mr. Speaker, the amendment to clause section 34, which are contained in clause 19, which talks about the people nominated must be natives of those counties. I think this is important because we have seen scenarios where people come from other counties and are nominated in another county. That effectively discriminates against the locals of that area. For example, if you bring, I know some time back we had in my county someone from Kisii County who was nominated in Vihiga County. I know in Bongalwale's county, Kakamega, we had someone from Northeastern and Siaya who were nominated in Kakamega. Mr. Speaker, this amendment will heal that. And also the requirement that in nominating candidates, we must take into account the wards, the balance of wards in that county, so that we don't have all nominated slots going to a few wards and you find the other wards being left out, Mr. Speaker. So that is a very progressive amendment and I support it. Mr. Speaker, on clause 20 of this bill, which is seeking to amend section 38 of the Act, that provides that the polling station shall be gazetted at least 3 months before the date of an election. Mr. Speaker, this is very important so that we don't have a scenario where we have late gazettement of polling station that creates confusion, and also we do not have scenarios where during court processes we were told that some ungazetted polling stations were involved in the election. So this is very clear, Mr. Speaker, that at least 3 months before the general election, we must gazette all the polling station in a particular electoral area. If you look at clause 22, which is seeking to amend section 39 of the Act to state categorically that the Commission shall determine, declare, publish the results of an election immediately after the close of the polling station, and the results declared at the polling station shall be final. Mr. Speaker, this is a very progressive amendment, and it is important that we also have transparency in those polling stations so that we have an election observers, we have political party agents, and all the people who are supposed to verify. And Mr. Speaker, going back to the issue of agents, you know, Kenya is among the few countries which are very innovative in very strange ways. You know, if the electoral agency is performing its role very well and doing its work very well and transparently in an accountable manner, then there should not be any burden on candidates to have agents in polling stations. It should be the role of the Electoral Commission. But this idea of having agents in polling station to verify the results is a clear confirmation that our electoral system has something wrong. And that clearly puts a lot of pressure on candidates. You can imagine if you are a presidential candidate in this country with about 45,000 polling stations, putting like 2 people in each polling station, that's already 90,000 people manning your results. And you are paying each maybe 5,000 shillings. Mr. Speaker, even before you do put your name on the ballot, you should already have a budget of 500 million shillings just to manage agents. Mr. Speaker, that is ridiculous. That is undemocratic. So we need to reform our IBC such that there is no pressure for candidates to have agents in the polling station, because the whole process is transparent, the whole process has clarity, and the whole process is protected by a functional commission. Mr. Speaker, I am also concerned about the amendment in section 39, subsection 6, the one that Senator Cheregei was referring to. The chairperson of the commission shall declare the results of the election of the president in accordance with Article 138(10) of the Constitution. Mr. Speaker, this is where we have a problem. And this is one amendment, one area that I will be seeking amendments. The problem with the Cherera 4 was that they were complaining that they were not involved in final verification and review of the results before they were declared. Mr. Speaker, I think this provision must be enhanced further to say that the commissioners will be involved fully before the chairperson of the commission declares the results, so that we don't have a scenario where some commissioners walk out and say that they were not involved in final tallying verification of the results. Mr. Speaker, Clause 23, which seeks to amend Section 44 of the Principal Act that talks about matters of procurement of technology, in this case, IT technology. The issue of intellectual property rights to the technology will be vested in the commission. Mr. Speaker, this is very important. This is very important because, you know, during the election, the IBC cited in court that they could not allow access to its technology because the technology is intellectual property of the provider of the technology. And therefore, this can be an avenue to deny access to very important information by Kenyans who would wish to access that information. So this particular amendment is very progressive. Further to it, the supplier of the, or the associate of this supplier must not be people who are facing issues in their own jurisdiction, like they are guilty of violating the procurement laws, or they have committed a crime, or they have been involved in election malpractices in other countries. This section 44 that has been amended provides for that as well, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, Clause 25, which seeks to delete Section 45 of the Principal Act. This Principal Act section, Mr. Speaker, talks about the conditions for recall by the public of members of parliament. Mr. Speaker, the current act makes it so difficult to recall a member of parliament. And this was put there deliberately by members of parliament trying to safeguard and beat around corners on the issue of recall. This section has now been removed, Mr. Speaker. So it is going to be very easy to recall a member of parliament, Mr. Speaker, including myself, if I'm not performing. Mr. Speaker, it goes on under Section 46, which has also been repealed to deal with all the conditions of recall under Section 45 and 46. Mr. Speaker, Section 28, no, Clause 28, seeks to repeal Section 74 of the Act to provide that disputes due to the nation will be the mandate of political parties tribunal and not IBC. During the election, Mr. Speaker, you have seen that on one hand, the tribunal is dealing with matters of dispute in political parties. On the other hand, IBC is doing the same. That is not the work of IBC. This amendment will ensure that only political parties tribunal will handle disputes between a candidate and his party or between political parties and not IBC. IBC role is misplaced, and that amendment heals that. Clause 29, Mr. Speaker, and amends Section 75 to provide that the election petition will terminate at the High Court for county assemblies. We should not have a scenario where the election petition for a county assembly member is taken all the way to Supreme Court. This law now provides that the case will terminate at the High Court. And the same applies, Mr. Speaker, to the section 85A, which is amended under clause 32, to provide that the petition for members of parliament, senators, and governors will terminate at the Court of Appeal, so that the Supreme Court performs the role that the drafters of the Constitution envisaged to do, specific things, and not dealing with the election matters. Mr. Speaker, if you look at clause 31, also, which amends section 82 of the Principal Act, it also provides that access to information. That access to information upon a request to IBC shall be granted within 3 days for presidential election and 7 days for other position. I think for presidential election, because of the limited time, because it has to be done within a limited time. 3 days is a long period of time. I think this should be reduced to 1 day, Mr. Speaker, considering the time constraint in presidential election. Mr. Speaker, clause 32 seeks to amend section 85A of the Principal Act on the issue of decision of the court on petition for members of parliament. I had said that. And Mr. Speaker, clause 33 amends section 87 to provide for the setting up of an independent firm approved by parliament to do evaluation of election, and a host of things will be done here, including reviewing the legal framework, reviewing the register of voters, reviewing the role of the media, reviewing the voter counting procedures. A host of things will be done, and that has to be done within 1 year after the election. Mr. Speaker, that is very progressive amendment, which will basically cure a lot of challenges we are going through, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, election is so important, and I hope that this bill will help us deal with the electoral challenges we have been having in this country, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I go back to the issue of IBC. IBC, and I want to address the courts. Please, you have every right to receive cases, to process cases, but also listen to what is happening outside the courts. The judicial notice of what is happening outside courts. This country will be in a crisis if there will be need to have an IBC, and there is no IBC. We will have a major constitutional crisis. So I want to call upon the courts to help us to expedite the setting up of a selection committee so that we can appoint the new commissioners who can now conduct by-elections, who can also prepare. We are now just about 2 years and a few months to the next general election, and we don't have an IBC in place. And you remember Kriegler's report said that all preparations to the election must be completed at least 2 years before election. We don't even have an IBC. So we have not even started, Mr. Speaker. So this is a very serious problem, and also the matter of cost of election, which must also be looked at, and also matter of transparency in our election, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to say that I will support this bill, except for the matter of declaration of the results by IBC chairperson. I believe that if we want to heal the problem of Cherera 4, we must insist that the declaration of results by IBC chairperson must be after concurrency with the other commissioners, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Senator Boni Khalwale. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to strongly support this bill, but with little tweaks here and there. And Mr. Speaker, I'm surprised that Senator Cherargei and Senator Osotsi, members of this House, who I believe are seasoned and they give serious thought to legislation, are complaining that our elections are too expensive. If you think democracy is expensive, please go and try dictatorship. Please go and try military rule. You'll know the difference. And Mr. Speaker, I say this with maximum respect because I know for Cherargei in 2007, when the country went bust because of flaws in electoral process, probably he was in kindergarten, so he has no idea how even, Mr. Speaker, sir, your own